Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and today's video is going to be the third week of me participating in 2 readathons. So I'm doing Everbloom Academy, and I'm also doing Orillium this month. And so that's what I'm doing. If you watched my last video, I am literally sitting exactly where I was when I filmed the last clip from that video because it's Sunday. And so I'm gonna go through briefly what I'm planning on reading this week. I do have a couple of holds for my library in right now, and I'm currently about 80% of the way through Burned by Patrick Ness, which is a book that I'm reading for, in Everbloom Academy, there's like a dragon writing class. So it's to read a book that features dragons or unicorns, but this one features dragons. And then in Orillium, Murphy, what are you sniffing? Do you need to go outside? Orillium has a prompt for a non-human protagonist. So that's what I'm reading Burned by Patrick Ness for, because the dragon has some chapters. This is like an alternative history fantasy book. So it's set in the 1950s, but in this world, everything is the same, but there are dragons. And there's this mixed race girl whose dad is going through some financial troubles. Her mother has died. Her dad, she's a white dad, but her mom was black. And so she faces a lot of like prejudice and stuff for that. And then her boyfriend is Japanese American. And so his mother died in an internment camp. And so there's a lot of issues with him in the town too. That's kind of how they like band together. But her dad has just had to hire a dragon because he can't afford workers anymore. So there's this dragon named Casimir, and dragons are also like people are very prejudiced against dragons in this world. I don't know. And then you also get the point of view of, what is that guy's name? Malcolm, who is this other teenage boy who is a part of a cult that worships dragons. And so he is on like a mission for what he believes is like the dragon goddess thing. And you find out more about like how that goes as the story goes along. I won't lie, this is not something that I really enjoy. I'm probably gonna end up giving it 3 stars. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not really my type of thing. But I am reading that. I also have the ebook for Ruin and Rising, which I plan on starting to read at some point, and I'm reading that for the Everbloom Academy prompt of geography, which is to read a book with a map or travel words in the title, because Ruin and Rising has a map at the beginning. It's the 3rd book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, so I'm really looking forward to reading it and wrapping up that trilogy. I didn't love book 2. I think I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was fine, but I loved book 1. I gave that 5 stars. So I'm hoping that it can stick the landing and that I'm happy with where things go. But this is about a girl named Alina who lives, it's like a Russian-inspired fantasy. And I also just found out that Grisha is a nickname. It was a nickname for one of the kids in Anna Karenina, because it's like basically the Russian version of Gregory. The nickname is Grisha. So Grishaverse is Gregverse. And I know a lot of people probably already knew that, but that is just so funny to me. And also, apparently, like, I can't remember his name now, but the Darkling's like name is actually a feminine name in Russian. And so like, I just think it's so funny. I don't know. It sounds cool, but like, I don't know if Leigh Bardugo just didn't do research, or if she just like decided it was going to be inspired by Russian names, but not really be Russian. I don't really know, but I think it's very interesting. So I'm going to read Ruin and Rising. And where was I going with that? Oh, it's about Alina, who discovers that she has these magical abilities. So she is what they call a Grisha, which is like a fantastical person, a person with fantastical powers. And usually you find out when you're a child, but for whatever reason, Alina didn't find out until she was like 16 to 20. I think she's like 18, but I don't exactly know how old she was. And then she gets swept up and taken to the capital to be trained in her abilities. And she also finds out that she's like the only one who has her particular ability. She's a sun summoner, which means that she can like expel light. And the most powerful Grisha at this time is this guy called the Darkling, who can create darkness. And so they're like kind of the yin and yang of each other. And she's got this like love interest named Mal, who was a boy who she was raised with at this orphanage, because they're both orphans. And Mal is like a gifted tracker, so he gets sort of wrapped up in the Darkling's different plots. And it's kind of like good versus evil, but it's also like nobody is fully good and nobody's fully evil, which I can appreciate. But where we stand now with book 3, I'm not going to spoil anything that's happened so far, obviously, but like you just don't really know who you can trust. And Alina is like trying to figure out, there's also like a religious cult aspect to this book. which I'm not really going to go into because I don't know how to explain it without spoiling other things that have happened. And I don't remember how they initially bring it up and explain it in the books. That doesn't spoil what's going to happen. So I just won't really expound upon that, I guess. But that part of it, I feel like, is one of the weaker parts, just because like it seems very disconnected from the other players, and like it's like inconveniencing everyone, if that makes sense. Like I'm hopeful that the third book can kind of like bring it in and make it like feel like a rounded whole. But right now it kind of feels like this side versus this side. And then, oh, there's also a religious cult over here that's like messing with both of them, but they don't really care enough about it to like make it a huge problem. So yeah, but that is up next on the docket. I'm hoping to read that this week. What else do I have? I have a couple other audiobooks. I'm trying to remember which ones I have. I know I have The Whisper Man, which there's a prompt to read a debut in one of the readathons, so I'm doing it for that. And then there's also a prompt to read a like book with healing. And the first line of the Goodreads review is something about how they're trying to heal from a tragedy. So I'm counting that for that. So it fits both readathons. I have that as an ebook. I've read another Alex North book. What was it called? The Shadows. It's called The Shadows. The Shadows is in the same universe as The Whisper Man, because The Whisper Man is talked about in The Shadows, but it's not like a direct sequel. So I'm excited to read The Whisper Man. I don't really remember. I remember the twist of The Shadows, but I don't really remember much else about it. So I'm excited to read The Whisper Man and see what it's all about. And if it's just like, I don't know if it's just like the same detective is working on them or like what it is, but they're both like not crime thrillers, but like paranormal crime thrillers, kind of like unsolved crimes that possibly have like a paranormal thing happening in them, I think is the vibe. And if I'm wrong, I will let you know. But right now we're about to go to a friend's house because we're going to watch the Chiefs game over there. I'm going to change into my like Chiefs t-shirt, and then we're going to go out to dinner with them and stuff, I think, after the game. But I'm hopeful that I can finish Burned by Patrick Ness tonight and then maybe start Ruin and Rising while I'm in bed. That's kind of my like plan for the evening, but I will let you know as my progress gets along. And hopefully at some point I will start making some progress in this room. I'm kind of tempted to just like start putting books on this shelf just so I can get rid of some boxes and then see where we go from there. So I might do that. And if I do, I will show you what I come up with. Hello. I'm not going to show you my computer. I am kind of working from home. I went into the office today and then I had to run some errands around lunchtime, and I picked up lunch because we still are not using our kitchen here. So that is why I'm at home right now. It's like 3:15, and I'm almost finished with my work for the day, which is very exciting. Well, I'll finish probably like 4:45 or something, which is excellent. I'm so excited because I do have to bill my time tonight, which is not going to be fun for me. But I'm coming here. It's Tuesday. I don't know if I've already said that. I am just wanting to update this vlog really quickly. Let me see if I can set this down. We're gonna go for this angle, which is very flattering. So I wanted to let you know that I finished, I don't even know if I talked about it, but I read The Last of Burn by Patrick Ness, which I believe I did talk about on Sunday. I can't remember if I'd finished it at that point though, but I ended up giving that book 3 stars. It was fine. It had kind of a like bumpy middle for me. So it basically builds to a certain point and then kind of feels like it turns into a different book because something happens that's like a twist that is not what I was expecting from it. Overall, like, I don't think this book is bad by any means. I thought it was a really interesting concept. I liked the dragon thing. I liked a lot of the lore that the story built in with. It deals with like a prophecy with dragons, and all of the different people that you follow have something to do with that prophecy. But just like ultimately it wasn't my favorite thing. It's not something that I'm gonna like tell everyone to rush out and read. I don't know if it's just like, I don't know if it's because it had such a build up to what I thought was the climax and then there was like a third act after that, or really what it was, but like pacing wise it didn't fully work for me. And then also it just isn't like my favorite type of story, but I don't think it's bad by any means. Like I think if you like a standalone fantasy with dragons, a YA fantasy that has a little bit of queer rep and a little bit of like historical fantasy to it, but like not super far away history, like the 50s. I thought it was an interesting setting that I've never really seen before. So I was really like, I was interested in that part, but just ultimately it didn't really work for me. So that one I gave 3 stars. And then I actually read, what is it? The Moon-Blooded Breeding Clinic, which is a like werewolf romance. And I read this because I'm not even going to remember where I saw it now. It's one of the books in the like Morning Glory Milking Farm series. It's like the third book in that series. Frankly, I knew it had nodding in it, and I wanted to see if nodding was something that I could handle. And it turns out, yes, I can handle it. It's fine. I don't think it's like my favorite thing, but it also didn't like really turn me off from the book. So that's good to know, I guess. But this one is about a woman who is a human woman who's previously in a relationship with a lizard man. They were married. They were trying to have a kid, but because of their interspecies nature, they like couldn't have a kid together. So, she was doing all these fertility treatments, and then their marriage fell apart. And she hears about this clinic, which is basically a fertility clinic with werewolves, except for you have to actually like have sex in order to get pregnant with the werewolf. But werewolves are supposed to be like super fertile, I guess. And so she signs up to do it. She meets her donor, and they have like an instant connection. And then it's just them banging it out to try to have a baby for the rest of the book. I don't know that this is like something that I love. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was fine. Like, it wasn't really bad, but I don't know if it's like for me. I also am trying to decide if I want to dip my toe in a monster romance. That's why I went with the werewolf thing. The other thing I want to mention, there is a scene where he is a werewolf, like in his shifted form, and they hook up. So that was a little like strange. She even calls him like good boy during it, which kind of gave me the ick, but it wasn't like horrible. But anyways, yeah, that was a very quick listen. The werewolf actually is a guy who is a photographer in Japan normally, but it's during the COVID-19 pandemic. Odd. And he has to come back to the US to stay with his family in this town that has a bunch of like werewolves and creatures in it. And then he needs extra money, so that's why he does the werewolf breeding clinic. Anyways, not my favorite thing, but again, not horrible. And I didn't read that for any prompts. I just read it for fun, I guess. I also read The Quiet American by Graham Greene, which is really short. It's like 180 pages. And that's like an anti-war book from the 50s. And it's essentially following this British journalist who is living in Vietnam. It's like right before the Vietnam War really kicks off, when Vietnam is still a French colony. And the British journalist is really into like opium. And he has this relationship with this woman who's like 30 years younger than him. And he's married back in England, and his wife won't give him a divorce. And so he's got this relationship with Phong, who's the like Vietnamese woman. And he ends up meeting this American guy who turns out works for the CIA. I had to look up what was going on because I wasn't really sure. And you find out really early into the book that the CIA guy, his name's Pyle, he is killed. And the like French and Vietnamese police are trying to figure out what happened to him. And they are they're not really accusing the British guy, but they're like trying to figure out what his involvement with it is. Because Pyle ends up in a relationship with Phong. So this book goes like back and forth between timelines, which wasn't like horribly confusing, but I didn't really understand that was what was happening at first. I gave this book 3 stars as well. Spoiler. It was fine. It has 2 movies. One was made in the 50s that Graham Greene apparently really didn't like because it changed the like message from being anti-war to being the US is the only way to save Vietnam from communism, which is an interesting choice. And then there's a 2002 movie with Brendan Fraser and Michael Caine. And I really I kind of want to watch it just because I really like Brendan Fraser and I like Michael Caine, and I haven't seen it. So I'm contemplating watching both movies and just seeing how I feel about them. But I don't know where I could find the 1950s version. And the 2002 version isn't really streaming anywhere either. So that's just maybe someday I'll put it on my IMDb watch list and see if I get to it eventually. But I thought that was fine. So yeah. Oh, and the reason I read that was because I got it as a hold for my library. And I just wanted to read it. It's not very long, so I wanted to just read it. So I just listened to it. But I originally got it out because I did the Olympics-a-thon readathon, and I was going to use that for my Asian book, Asian-inspired, Asian representative book. But I ended up reading something else for that, I guess. I can't remember what I did. Anyways, all of that being said, I am now listening to The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, and I'm 3% in, not very far, but it's about this girl named Rin, who is an orphan, and she's been raised by this family. And she basically runs their store as free labor. And then they decide that they are going to try to marry her off to this guy who is in charge of trade or something in her town. And it's because her parent or her adopted parents, she calls them aunt and uncle, but I don't think they're actually related to her. They deal in the illegal opium trade. And so this is a historical fantasy about the Poppy Wars, like about the opium wars in Indochina, which was that in the 20th century or the 19th century? I don't remember exactly when that was. I don't know that much about it, actually, historically speaking, but I'm excited to read this book. And so where we're at now, Ren is trying to study to take this exam because she wants to be like in this like military, go to this military school, and she just has a really good memory. So like the way she gets this guy to train her is she's plying him with opium, but she also is able to like memorize this book in like 3 days, and he's really impressed by that. So that's how she's going to get into the school, because it's a very competitive program. And I've heard that as this series goes along, Ren becomes more and more morally gray, which is sort of similar to how A Good Girl's Guide to Murder goes. So Pip starts out this like very fresh-eyed teenage girl, and then as she gets deeper into the different crimes that are happening around her, she starts turning more like ambiguous in her like good versus evilness. So I'm excited to read this. I've been wanting to read this for a long time. People rave about this series. I read Babel by R.F. Kuang, which is a standalone fantasy by her, and I really enjoyed it. I was pleasantly surprised because I did not know how I was going to feel about it, given the footnotes and like the heavy-handedness or the tendency to be heavy-handed with some of the messaging that I'd heard about. But I didn't think that one was horrible, and I mostly just ignored the footnotes. But this one doesn't have footnotes, and it is like another like moralistic fantasy, I guess, where R.F. Kuang is really talking about the way, sorry, I'm like hunched over, talking about the way that white people and like colonialism affected and continues to affect Indochina as it was colonized. So I'm very curious in that messaging, but I'm gonna see how I feel about this one. And I think it's interesting coming off of The Quiet American, which is also about or heavily has to do with opium in the Far East. So we're gonna see how this goes. But yeah, I'm very excited to read this, and I will let you know when I have further updates. Oh, one more update. I'm also reading Rune and Rising by Leigh Bardugo, which is the final book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and I'm enjoying it so far. I'm not very far. I just started it last night. I read a couple chapters, and it's again picking up right where book 2 left off. And I don't know. I'm excited to finish this chapter and just see how I feel about Shadow and Bone as a whole. I'm very hopeful that I will end up enjoying this last rendition, this last installment, and I will let you know when I have more updates. Hello, you can see Marvel behind me. It is now Thursday, and I just wanted to quickly update you with what's been going on. So I am still reading The Poppy War. Murphy in this house, we lock him in a separate room because I don't really need to get into it here, but I can maybe explain later if you're curious. Our dogs can't be alone together anymore. So when we leave, we used to kennel Murphy, but that was because we lived in a house that didn't have any doors with latches, if that makes sense. Like all of the doors would just push open. They didn't, like the latches weren't lined up, so it was just an old house. But now this house, the door's closed. And so Murphy gets locked in our bedroom while we're gone. And he's sad that I'm talking because that means that I'm not gone yet. But he does okay with it. We've already done it twice and he's been okay. So anyways, it's Thursday. I am still reading The Poppy War. I'm a little over halfway through now, and it's gotten kind of weird. It's not bad, but I didn't know what form the magic was going to take. And it kind of takes this like gods and goddesses shaman form, which I wasn't expecting. So we're still following Ren. Ren has gone to this military academy, and she's got the dog in her, you know? Like there's something inside of her that is like more powerful than anyone realized, except for this one teacher realizes it and decides he's gonna like hone her abilities. So she's gone through that. And then where I'm at, one of the other nations, I wish I could remember the names of it better. I'm not a names person. One of the other nations has attacked the like kingdom or the empire that Ren is learning to fight under. So she has joined this group of like warriors. Everyone from the academy was like assigned to a different thing, and she was assigned to this particular group. And we're also learning a lot about this character Alton. And Alton is a different, I don't think he's a different species. That's ridiculous. But he's like a different race to everyone else. And he's part of this particular community that like used to be believed has magical abilities. And that's kind of where I think we are. So I'm a little confused about what all is going on in this book. I'm liking it a lot. Ren definitely has like anger issues. She's definitely got pride issues. And I have a feeling that when people say she turns into like the anti-hero, I think that's going to come a lot into play. I'm really curious to see how that goes, and that'll be further down, obviously, because this is a book about like a long-standing war. So I feel like we're going to find some things out that certain people aren't really the good guys. And I'm wondering if Ren is going to like, I'm wondering how that's going to take shape in her life, but we're not there yet. I don't know yet. I also am continuing my read of Ruin and Rising. I did not get very much farther in that. I'm really trying to finish the reread that I started of Turn of the Key. Not Turn of the Key. Yeah, The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. I started it, and then I just got caught up in this readathon, and I haven't, well, I got caught up in the Olympics-thon readathon, and then I got caught up in this readathon, and I just haven't had time to like sit down and finish it. But I read like a good 100 pages last night, so I'm almost done, which is exciting. I love that book. For whatever reason, I think it's because I know what's happening. Round 2 for this one really isn't holding my attention. I reread One by One a few years ago. So I read it and then I reread it like the next year or the year after. And that one, my reread really worked for me. Like I really enjoyed it on reread just as much as I enjoyed my regular read. So this one, not as much. I'm not really holding, it's not really holding my attention as much as I wanted it to. But it's like, it's not a haunted house book necessarily, but it's about this girl, Rowan, who becomes a nanny at this like estate in Scotland. And she, you know that she's like kind of lying about her experience level and what's going on with that, but you don't know exactly the extent of it. And you don't know why she wanted this job so bad, but like she keeps repeating that like she wanted it for like, I don't know, like she had to have this job or whatever. And she is taking care of these like 3 little girls. And then there's also a teenage stepdaughter that's, or a teenage daughter who's gonna come back. I think in my head I labeled her a stepdaughter, but I think she is just the Ellen Court's oldest child. For some reason, it's like 10 years older than the other ones. But regardless, it's a retelling of Turn of the Screw. So if you also saw The Haunting of Bly Manor, that is also a retelling of the Turn of the Screw. So it's a very similar premise. And in this version, the house that Rowan is babysitting in or is nannying in is a smart house. And so what's happening right now is that the smart house is acting up. And Rowan isn't sure if it's like Jack, the handyman. She doesn't know if it's Jean, the maid who comes by, or like the housekeeper. She doesn't know if it's one of the kids is like messing with her, but she feels like someone is doing something on purpose to mess with her because they are like turning all the lights on. They are hiding the key, like all sorts of stuff is happening. And she doesn't think it's just in her head. But everyone, like she's sort of become close with Jack because he's helped her out a couple times because the parents are gone. So she's alone with the kids in this house. And Jack is sort of like trying to help her. There's also a poison garden on the grounds. So that's really dangerous and ominous. And you know the whole time in this book, she's writing to it in, what do they call attorneys there? She's writing to her lawyer, basically. I don't remember what they call it. Is it her barrister? I don't know. There's a difference between barrister and solicitor, but I don't know what it is. So she's writing to whoever she's writing to try to get this guy to defend her in court because she's been accused of killing one of the children, but she is saying she didn't do it. And so she's telling this whole story to like prove her innocence. So that's like also what you have to remember. I think that's like almost a flawed premise just because the book doesn't read, that's my Roomba. The book doesn't read like letters, except for the parts that are directly addressed to this solicitor guy. I think she's calling him a solicitor. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. I bet people in the UK are watching this like, how could you not know the difference? But I really I don't. It's like in the US, there's technically a difference between lawyer and attorney, but we use them interchangeably. Like you go to law school, you become a lawyer when you graduate law school, but you don't become an attorney until you pass the bar. Does that make sense? And then also you're an attorney if you can practice in front of courts, but you don't have to be an attorney to be a lawyer. I don't know if that makes sense. Regardless, I have to go to work, speaking of being a lawyer. So I'm gonna go to work. I'm gonna pack my to-go coffee. I already packed my lunch, and then I will let you know when I have another update. I might listen to the Poppy War on the way to work. I honestly might not, because I've just been zoning out when I drive to work. But yeah, this is the house. Isn't she cute? We haven't really done much, but we got rid of our old coffee table because it was falling apart, and so we need to buy a new coffee table. And also you can see that empty shelf. We got to figure out what to do with it, but yes, things are going well. I will talk to you when I talk to you. Hi friends, it's Friday evening, and I am just coming here to update the vlog with my progress. I finished The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Oh, Murphy. I already locked him away because I'm about to leave. I feel so bad. I finished The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I rounded up from 3.5. I thought it was kind of confusing, but really good. Like, I'm definitely intrigued, but I didn't love it, if that makes sense. It's way more violent and gory than I thought it would be, which makes sense given that it is about war, but I wasn't like anticipating that going into it. And it does have like a lot of fantastical elements, but they weren't the type of fantasy that I was expecting. Again, I think I've already mentioned it's a lot to do with like shamans and old gods and stuff, which I don't know why that's not what I thought it was going to be, but it's not. So it's interesting. I am planning on continuing in that series, but not at this time. I have since picked up the audiobook for Mary, An Awakening of Terror by Nat Cassidy. And I picked this up. There's a prompt for Orillium that's like, read a book that's a retelling. And I picked this up because I thought it was a retelling of Carrie. In the author's note at the beginning of the book, Nat Cassidy talks about how he was inspired by Carrie. Like, what if Carrie didn't die? And spoilers for Carrie, I guess. But like, what if she was able to grow into middle age? And that's like what inspired this story. But then he took all of the Carrie elements basically out and it just like inspired it. So it doesn't perfectly fit the prompt, but again, that's what I'm reading it for. I'm really enjoying this. So I wasn't sure how I felt about it for the first like quarter. I thought it was like fine. But then it really like ramped up. It's got like religious horror and cult horror and body horror. So the premise of the book is there's this middle-aged woman named Mary who's going through menopause, or I guess perimenopause or whatever. And she's also like blacking out for random periods of time and having like weird visions. She can't like look in the mirror because she sees her face like melting off. And the same thing happens when she sees women that are like around her age. So it's really like gross and gory in that aspect. And then she ends up having to go back to her hometown because her aunt who raised her is really sick and needs someone to take care of her. And so that's what she's doing. And she's learning all these like secrets about this serial killer that used to live in this town. And there's also like a religious cult, which is like very much in the background, okay? That doesn't come to the forefront until like way late in the book, but you get like, you know that that's something that's happening pretty much the whole time. I'm worried that it's too much actually now that I've said that. But like, I knew that that was coming. You just don't know exactly what it is. And I gotta tell you guys, this book is so good. I'm really, really enjoying it. I was not expecting to like it as much as I am because of how I felt about the first bit. Also in the author's note at the beginning, he goes through some trigger warnings. So maybe that's worth checking out if you have triggers. Again, I've mentioned this many times on this channel. I don't really have anything that triggers me. I do have things that I prefer not to read. And I will say one of those things is in this book, but it was not as bad as I was expecting it to be. So it was okay. But also the way that like I was listening to parts of this and I had to be like, because I was so horrified. That's happened at least 3 times. So it's good. I'm really enjoying it. I'm still reading Ruin and Rising. Don't have any more progress to share with that one. I tried to read a little bit of it last night, but I was so tired I just ended up falling asleep. I'm about to go to Boulevard Brewing Company because they're doing a limited release of some of their new seltzer flavors. So I'm going up there with some of my friends. And then tonight is the first night. Matt does this barbecue competition every year. And it starts tonight and then it goes tomorrow, all day tomorrow. So I'm gonna go up there tonight and hang out with them for a little bit. And then I'm gonna come back here and sleep. I know he plans, they like prep all their meat and stuff the night before. I don't eat meat. I don't know if you know this about me. So I don't know how much of an active participant I'm actually going to be in this contest. I'm just kind of gonna be there because it's not something I do, but I'm excited. I got a little jumpsuit that I can maybe show you later to wear. It's like a coverall thing. So anywho, that's what I'm doing, and I will let you know when I have another update. Okay, bye. Hello, it's Sunday, and I'm checking in to close out this week's vlog. So I did end up finishing Mary, An Awakening of Terror by Nat Cassidy, and I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was really, really good. I finished it yesterday, and I read this for the last prompt under lore, which is Tale of a Desert Creeper, to read a retelling. I read this because I believed it was a retelling of Carrie by Stephen King, and it actually isn't that much of a retelling. It's more of like an extension of that story, or like inspired by, but I'm still counting it for the prompt. Again, I really enjoyed this one. I was really pleased with the way it was written. It's focused on like perimenopause and how like women, like it has a female main character who's going through perimenopause, and it's like how the world sort of reacts to that. And that's like what inspired the story. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I have some band-aids on because we're dog sitting for a dog down the street, and he got a little excited last night when we went over there and he bit me. So I've never been bit by a dog before, but I'm fine. It was just scary more than anything, but that's why I'm like bandaged up. Anyways, yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below how you are doing with either of these readathons, and also if you've read any of the books that I talked about in this vlog, let me know how you felt about them. You can subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more content from me. I do try to post 2 videos every week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!